Welcome to the IDCTA live stream interview. And today we have Will Coleman. I'm your host, Eric Dierks. Welcome, Will. Will has carefully produced and competed more than a dozen horses at the highest levels of eventing. He has been named annually to the USEF's high performance training list since he was 18 years old. Will most recently represented his country at the 2002 FEI World Championships, where the team earned a silver medal, the first team medal for the United States since 2002. A former North American Young Rider champion, gold medalist, Will also the only American to have ever won the Brahman European Under 25 CCI four-star championship in the United Kingdom, a feat which he accomplished at 20 years of age. With several top finishes at the five-star level and multiple four-star wins on a variety of horses, Will has been successfully competing at the highest levels of eventing for 20 years. Will continues to pursue representing his country at major championships and competing at the major five-star events around the world. And just recently, he has won the CCI four-star short with Diabolo, first place on Diabolo, and off the record took third. So congratulations, Will, on that recent win.
Thank you very much, Eric. I'm very happy to be here with you guys. Looking forward to the evening.
Well, I'm glad you're joining us. So, Will, I thought we'd start off with a little bit your childhood, how you started getting the riding bug. How did that all start for you?
Well, I was kind of, I think, like a lucky kid. I grew up in a pretty horsey family. We grew up on a farm, and my parents rode. My mom and my dad both rode. Grew up
Oh, you're
really young kid. My parents were doing dressage, and so I was just around a lot of good dressage people from a young age, and as a kid, I was not that interested in dressage, but probably absorbed a fair bit of it. But I think as I and my brothers, we all sort of grew up hunting and riding, sort of very natural way, and we were just kind of around horses in all capacities, dressage, hunting, and then as my dad sort of transitioned from dressage more to pure show jumping, we were exposed to a lot of that as well. And I mean, we had a very well-rounded, kind of versatile, experience with horses as kids and as teenagers, and it made it really interesting, and kind of made it easy for someone like me
What,
to get kind of hooked on it.
what made you go to being the competitive route in eventing? What made you want to compete versus, doing any other discipline or occupation in the horse world? Did you go to school first? College?
So I was in school, obviously, like everybody really through high school. And I really didn't take much of an interest in eventing until I went to a couple clinics with the O'Connors as a kind of 14, 15-year-old kid. And at that point, I really, competitively, I really hadn't had any real goals. Like I just was really interested in riding. And I think because I had a very educated horse person in my father and even my mother, riding well was sort of even just enough for me. And I had a lot of competitive outlets playing other sports as a kid. So horses was kind of just a really passionate interest. Then, I did a couple clinics with the O'Connors, and I was sort of exposed to the cross country side of that sport. And I just think, like all event riders, I think that's the heart and soul of our sport. And if you don't love cross country, you're probably not an event rider, right? So I got more hooked on that part of it. I just became more interested in it. I think the O'Connors were great at sort of exposing me to the sport, and helping me get a little bit of a foothold in it and to develop some competitive goals in that arena. But it wasn't until I was kind of 16, towards the end of my kind of middle high school years that horses sort of became, okay, I'm going to give this eventing thing a try. And I just sort of got more and more into it.
Well, when we watch your career today, you seem to be at a lot of the big competitions on many different horses. If you ever get to visit Will's website too, it's a really good website, by the way, Will. It's very entertaining, and you've got a lot of horses coming up on there. Um, you all wonder, these guys that compete at these major five stars, you see them at competitions a lot with riding a lot of different horses. How do you balance out your family life and a competitive career with that? Walk us through your team and your start of the day and end of the day. Are you really regiment with your routine?
Extremely regimented. Yes. I wake up 3 days a week. I wake up 4 a.m., go to the gym, I work out with an amazing kind of performance trainer. Works out with a lot of horse people, but he knows our sport, and he sort of has a program designed for me that sort of helps me try to stay in peak physical shape. And so that's sort of part of my life as an athlete. But I wake up, I go to the gym, 5 a.m. I work out for about an hour and 15 minutes. Drive home, I get a coffee, and my kids wake up, and then and I kind of help maybe organize them a little bit, or at the very least, we have like kind of some quick family time in the morning. Katie and I and our two children, and then I go to the barn, and my kids go to school, and either Katie or I will pick them up from school, depending on kind of our schedules for the day, or if I have horses showing or things going on. But
So as
at,
far as
at night,
going to the
we're just like any other family. We cook dinner and sit around the table, and um, you
so you pretty much have a beginning and end
it's
of the
my
day at the
job.
barn.
Just might start a little earlier, and
I'm sorry, Will, you were breaking up with
hours
the
pretty
internet
soon.
here. And
I'm sorry.
yeah, it's all right. So you have a pretty much a beginning and end of the day at the barn. Are you really strict about, okay, this is when I'm done with my last horse. This is when I'm starting with my first horse. And as far as interruptions go, do you have a staff that tack up your horses and do you just focus on the riding, or are there other responsibilities around the farm that you focus on?
Well, there's always other responsibilities. I mean, the riding is kind of the main part of my job, but we do some teaching. I obviously I'm involved in like for I set all the courses, I set all the jumps on the cross country, I organize all the conditioning schedules, I do all my own conditioning on the horses. I have amazing staff, and they do some of the exercise riding for the horses, more to fortify their relationships with the horses. And I think sometimes it's good for the horses to have somebody else that's very intimately involved with them, that gets to ride them and do some things that are probably slightly lower pressure than maybe what we're doing on a training basis. So, but our days are pretty regimented as much as they can be in eventing. I mean, you know how it is, Eric, when you've got horses going galloping somewhere or horses competing. We have horses going to dressage shows, we have horses going to jumping shows, and then there's our eventing schedule. There's a lot going on. My staff is really what allows me to have a life with my family, because if I couldn't trust them to do what sort of we believe in from a program standpoint, and stand by our horses and look after them in the way that we think they deserve, that'd be hard for Katie and I to take the time that we can to be with our kids and try to be as normal a family as is certainly something that is different for someone like me, professional rider, compared to like the guy who's working a 9 to 5. But our kids sometimes come on those trips, which is kind of a cool, like a high level scale, tough guys around the world. I mean, we have sort of a kind of boutique operation. It's not 50 horses. We're a kind of a smaller barn. My competition spring between the eventers and the few jumpers is really only about kind of 10 to 12 horses. So it's and that's sort of that's by design. We sort of want it to be a little bit smaller. I think we do a lot of the work ourselves. I don't like pawning off a lot of the riding on other people. So, we that's just kind of what we can handle. And that also, I think, helps us maintain some of that balance you're talking about. If I had 25 horses on the road competing, there wouldn't be many weekends at all that I'd be home.
So when you hop on your horse or when you look at your horse as getting on that day, and of course you have to adjust to the horse, what's one of the first expectations that you look for out of your horse before you start working out? And we know that you have your gallop routines, but what about all the workouts in between your gallop routines? How much work on the flat do you do? Do you do it in the dressage arena, or do you do a lot of flat work in the open on rough terrain? What are some of the things that you do for your routine that separates you from most?
To anyone else's program, I think the first thing we take stock of, I think, is when you get on a horse, I don't think it's often not good to have any expectations. I think you just get on and you really try to get a sense of what you have that day, and then what's the best thing you can do to get the most out of that day based on what you have. Um, I am a big believer in horses needing to what they're doing. And when we do flat work, I probably only do flat work in like a dressage arena. I do a lot of flat work. I'm a big believer riding horses on natural ground, out on the grass, over the country. I think doing horses, I do tons of cavaletti work, tons of like small sort of jumping exercises that are more mentally engaging for the horses than they are physically taxing. And I like the variety of that. I sort of believe in making it interesting for them and trying to keep it fun and not just drilling down on them every day. I think good training takes a long time. And, if you take that kind of long, measured approach, your horses get really trained to a point where you can really trust that stuff is going to stay with them. You don't need to hammer it week in and week out to keep them sharp and keep them well. My horses, the Kentucky horses came back to Virginia here from Kentucky, and I went back to Florida to get some horses ready for Tryon. And the horses had a week off after Kentucky, and then my girl Erin, who was here with them, hacked them over this beautiful farm for a week until I got back. And even this week, I started riding them on Monday, and I haven't been in the arena once. We've had good footing, a lot of rain here, and we've just been riding out, hacking out. I get on, I don't really have any plan. I just go riding, and I've been on some of these horses for an hour plus, just riding all over the place, picking a place where the footing feels good and maybe doing 10 minutes of work and then go ride somewhere else and do 10 minutes of work somewhere else. And I feel like my horses feel pretty, it's just keeps both of us in a good mental state.
That's one thing that I always admired about you, Will, but at the same time, I was kind of envious of your personality has always appeared really laid back, versus, I'm a little headstrong sometimes and sometimes too overly ambitious and stepping on my own feet. But you've always appeared very laid back, any interview or any time I came across you, and even just how you talk about your training measurement and see what happens. And How does that, do you feel like that's almost a benefit? How does that work for you and how may it work against you in some places? Have you had that, thought?
Sure. I think from from the distance, I could see why you might say that, but in reality, I'm very kind of type A, super driven. Tend to put like a lot of pressure on myself, and I think that's something that I've had to learn to manage. And I think as a horse person, that was probably my biggest weakness you know for a long time, and still I think has to be something that I watch very carefully. That you know we all want to be competitive and to do well, but you really have to make sure that you're not um, overtraining or asking more from your horse than they're sort of ready to give you. And you have to have, I think, realistic
Do
uh,
you do
um, goals, and just be very aware of
Do do you do any work outside of the horses to keep a healthy mindset, like any other practices? Like going, like, you go to the gym to physically get ready. Do you do any mental practices to be ready?
I've had sessions with different sports psychologists and things like that. Not I wouldn't say regularly. I more just have a couple of people that I might check in with here and there when just to sort of make sure that I think more just going through the process of like talking with someone and verbalizing um, sort of maybe what your plan is or how you're approaching certain things, just to make sure that you're actually putting it out there how you want to go into a competition or what your goals are, kind of how you're going to define success. And I think, to be honest, my wife is a big part of that for me. I think her relationship with me, not just as my spouse, but as someone that is like a partner in what we're doing and very intimately involved. I think I'm really lucky that Katie knows me as well as she does. That I think that she's probably the biggest sort of rock for me to be aware of. I think too, as we're a real team environment here, and I think Aaron and Haley, who've been my two head girls for a long time, they know me very, very well as well. And I think that sort of team that I have around me, I think when I start to maybe get a little bit too maybe on edge, or when I start to feel like I'm getting a little too intense, maybe crossing the line from being driven to being a little bit kind of overpressured, I think they're good at sort of maybe saying just the right thing to make me aware of it. And I think that's true of most successful people, is they tend to sort of flirt with that line a little bit. And I think with horses, it's just important that you realize that you're working with an animal that doesn't have your ambitions, or they don't. No horse is born saying, "I want to go to the Olympics," or "I want to go and win Kentucky," or that's just not how they're not wired like that. So we have to be really respectful of that. Our goals are sort of, they've become something that we achieve with them, but with their permission, and not just, kind of, trying to force the issue.
I'm curious, we do all these competitions like horse trials, and when you have your eyes set on, let's say, the Olympic Games or the World Games, and you compete as a team for the country, is that's got to be a lot more pressure. Or do you feel like it's more pressure competing for your country and a team as a team versus doing your let's say on your own the Kentucky 4-star? What's that like competing
Well,
on
it is
for your
more
country?
pressure, I guess, from the standpoint of there's the result is it impacts more people. But I think to the important thing to remember is that to your horse, it's just another event. And I think for you to be at your best, you should just treat it like any other event. And I think that's something that as I've matured, I think I've learned how to do that better. I think that's sort of the truth for probably most people going through their first team experiences, is that you could lose sight of sort of the things that got you there, and maybe you start trying to do the incredible and sort of do the miraculous thing to get that result, instead of just saying, okay, this is what I know I can do, this is what I know my horse can do, and I'm just going to try to put forth the best effort I can given my circumstances on that day. And sometimes those circumstances might not be great. Your horse just may not be feeling as well as he was a few weeks ago, or any number of things can affect their performance as well. And you just have to roll with it. You can't care too much, and that's a really hard thing,
Yeah.
to sort of actually tell yourself that you kind of have to just approach this like it's just another horse show. But I really think that's the way to do it, and that's what you try to do, and that's why being sort of process oriented and not result oriented is just a really huge thing for all really performance athletes.
Well, you're somebody I consider to be somewhat of an outlier in producing several top international horses. Um, and I was wondering, what do you think is your number one attribute in producing a horse that you think the next generation of horsemen need, and not having a competitive horse, but maybe or in having a competitive horse and a happy horse?
Well, I don't know. I think I wouldn't put myself in any special category. That's for sure. I think there's lots of good horsemen out there, horsewomen, and I think I'm just trying to, we are constantly looking at ways that we can improve at what we do. I think one thing I would say that as a program, I think we're very patient. I think we what we want, or how we set goals for horses. We are flexible in that, and if a horse isn't quite ready to do what we thought he might be ready to do, then we change our plans. And I think that flexibility and not being completely um, married to a timeline is probably something that served really well. I think it's easy to sort of get thinking, if you don't get to this event by this time in their life or their careers, I think there's always other events and other shows, and I just feel like you're always going to do right in the sport if you just do right by your horse and just be patient and let things come to you, instead of trying to force the issue and maybe go a bit faster than you should.
Well, it looks like you're always holding a high bar of where you want to go and to international competition. So I'm guessing you have to have a quite a lineup of horses, always the next one coming up, and especially now coming the Los Angeles Olympics coming up, and I'm sure you're thinking about what horses are going to be ready for that. Are there what are some expectations that you have behind a horse that you're purchasing? Are you purchasing really young horses? Are you purchasing experienced horses? How much do you want to put into the horse, and what's your experience with that?
Success on have been horses that we bought as young horses, so like 4, 5 year olds. But the last couple of years, we've had a couple that we've acquired that are older, and that was more, I think, because we had, I've got a couple really, really good owners that sort of felt like I needed a couple horses that were closer to the level we were trying to do than starting all over again with 4 and 5 year olds. But the truth is, most of the horses we've still bought the last couple of years have been young horses, and I just think that's kind of what's been our key to success. And I think we've found a couple horses like kind of 8, 9, 10-year-old horses, but those are the exception, not the rule. And we it's hard to buy horses at those ages. I think you end up taking a couple of years just to get to know them. So we don't change our philosophy when you buy a horse that's a little older or has more experience, and you think you should be able to just pick up and go. That really is not our MA or our kind of our MO. We still take time, and if we need to feel like we need more time to get to know that horse and really understand him before we go and put him under the fire of competition, then we do that. So
What will have
buying the
these
older
horses
horses
gone at 10
is
years
still
old?
a slow process.
I'm sorry.
Say again.
What level
I said
has,
buying.
I'm sorry.
I said just buying the older horse, in my experience, has still been a pretty slow process, and
Yeah.
that's just kind of how we operate.
Um, how about when you look at some of those horses that have had somebody else's training on them, how much do you look at the other person in similar styles of your riding and um and whether or not that's going to gel with you too, probably, huh?
No, I think that's a really hard thing to evaluate. I mean, it's hard to know, even if you think you know things about someone else's program, there's going to be way more that you don't know. And that could be, especially when you're only really probably um, getting any of that information from how you see them ride and work their horses in at events, which, as we all know, can be very different from maybe what somebody actually is doing at home. So, I really don't look at that closely. I more look at the horse, and I more just look at, do I feel like this is a wants to work with me, that I really try to get the best sense of the horse's character and his sort of, if I think that horse would benefit from being with us. I have enough, I think, confidence in our program, and I usually feel like if the circumstances are right, that we can try to do good by the horses. I think that they can perform for us, but I think the biggest thing is that you don't lock yourself into saying it has to happen by this date or by this big event or by this championship. I think that's where you can get in a little bit of hot water.
So what are the chances we'll see you go to Paris, or would I be jinxing you with an answer? You're frozen, Will.
I have no idea. Like, oh, how's that?
There you
Better?
we're
I think
freezing
just
in and
like,
out, so the answers get really delayed, and we're
oh
anticipating
man,
the answer.
all right. Well, all I can say on the Paris thing is, like every other rider, I think, you're just sort of, we're all a little bit in limbo at the moment, kind of waiting to see how selection pans out. I think it's a competitive year. We lost one of our probably best contenders in Chintonic, but I'm lucky that I've got a couple other horses there that I think are still strong candidates. But it's I think no matter what, you commit to the process of you know being selected potentially, and you have to be sort of happy with however that shakes out. So if we're lucky enough to go to Paris, obviously we'd be thrilled to go and try to do our best for the country. But if we don't, there's other events for us to go do, and we're just gonna keep trying to enjoy our horses. And we're really, really lucky that this is our life. I have a great life. I My life is it's incredibly blessed, regardless of whether I go to Paris or not. So I really feel like I'm in just the luckiest guy in the world, and I'd love to go to the Olympics because it's just such an amazing challenge. But I'm really comfortable with kind of what we're doing, and I really enjoy my life. So if it doesn't happen, I also it's not going to bring any any tears. It's just we would be blessed or privileged to go, but I also I'd be rooting just as hard for the people that went um, that weren't me. So um, it's just another horse show. Only happens once every 4 years, but and I know it's a pretty cool one this year, but it's just another horse show. Any horse show you get to go to is you're a pretty lucky guy, in my opinion.
Are you already thinking about Los Angeles? And as horses mature and get older too, and which horses may peak 4 years from now?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a few horses that are in mind for LA, but I know very little about LA, where it's going to be, what the venue's going to be like, what the event's going to be like, and what horses it might suit. But I know that the Olympics are one of the biggest competitions we have in our sport, and I just like putting myself in those types of arenas just to see how we do. And I enjoy just the challenge of that. So, of course, we're going to want to be in the mix for LA, but at the moment, it's so far in the distance. All I'm focusing on with the horses that might still be of age when those games come around is how do I get a little better at my shoulder ins or my flying changes, or how can I make this horse's jumping shape a little bit better. I think I just try to get lost in those details. And if I can just keep trying to improve a tiny bit every day or every month, then hopefully I'm in a position to go to something like that in a few years.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, watching you on in the dressage test and you do your halts on the center line, I think you probably take the most time at the halt.
I'm just trying to remember my tests.
You're remembering the next movement.
Yeah. Just trying to think about which way do I turn now at the end of this thing.
Can you think of a moment in your riding career that was probably your biggest highlight to yourself, that you feel like, wow, if I could relive that moment again, or that you do relive it in that moment over and over again? Is there one experience in your life that you just say, like, from here on out, if I could keep reliving that would be the bee's knees?
You know, I have some great moments, certainly great memories. Um, but I don't really like dwell on them like that. Maybe as much as I should. I'm always sort of into what's next, or you know, okay, that was great. How do we get a little better for the next thing? Or I mean, Aachen was amazing when Timmy won, but that was so kind of um, I don't want. It was just kind of one of those weekends of like it finished and you were like, oh my gosh, did we just win this event? I can't even really. It felt like you were in a dream, you know. And for Tony was a little more. You were more aware of what was happening, just because of the magnitude of World Championships, and you know. But at the same time, it was still felt like at the end of it, you were kind of like a little bewildered by, wow, I mean, I can't believe we just did this. But the truth is, like, I think in both circumstances, I think what probably made it successful for me was the fact that I didn't really, I feel like I was just doing what I would do at any old horse trial. I was really just into my horse. I was into sort of our goals for the week, and just trying to ride these little things and do these little things well. I had a plan for the course, and I just tried to execute that plan. And I think like there were tons of moments in both those weekends where it could have gone wrong. But I think what probably kept it from going wrong was just staying in the moment and just really reacting well in certain situations, and not becoming overly obsessed with the result. And that's a really easy thing to say, really hard thing to do. But I think most of the time in my career, I think it's when I've done that the best has been when I've done the best.
Well, I
Um,
like when listening to Equa ratings on how they narrow down the statistics of going, all right, you have to have a, sub 28 score and no time penalties on cross country and no rails in the stadium, and you could be in the top, 10. Um, and when you think about that, and then you go home, you're at home practicing those points of going, all right, in order to get no time penalties on cross country, I have to have my horse X fit. I need to be this accurate with my lines. I need to be this good with my rhythm on different terrain. You're training that at the end of a big competition. That's just got to be very rewarding, feeling all your hard work through that time at that given point, whether or not you could produce a score. But it is an odds game in the end. Um, what's your feeling behind that? And then when you walk away from a competition and something doesn't go well, um, then you go home and work on it. What's your experience playing with those numbers and the statistics?
well, I think with Echo Ratings, what's been great about their involvement in eventing is just that it makes it, I think, very easy for us all to be very honest with ourselves.
Right.
Um, you know, there is a lot of there is a lot of chance in our sport. There are variables that we can't control that can drastically affect your result, and you have to accept the element of chance when you sign up for eventing, because if you don't, you're going to be a pretty unhappy person. Um, so I think there's parts of that you learn to sort of say, okay, um, was that something that I could control and improve, or was that something that just happened? And I think you have to sort of be self-aware enough to actually determine the difference between the two. But when it comes to evaluating performance, I think it is great to be able to frame it statistically. The real trick is then to say, okay, well, then what's the best route to actually changing those statistics? And evaluating your show jumping and saying, okay, well, what's actually the reason why I average a little less than a rail? Or, how do I get that? That's really, it's all easy. It's to say, oh, I go home and I train it, or I go home and I practice. But what are you practicing? And how are you training it? And actually, is your show jumping and dressage or show jumping and cross country issue, is it actually a flat work issue? Or is it actually a horsemanship issue? Is it a strength issue in your horse? Strength issue in you? Those are all the things those questions are really what the best riders, I think, are really, really good at answering. And I don't think I was always the best at that. I still don't think I am, but I think I'm getting better. And I think that's sort of the key. It's like, how do we all want to improve. We all want to get better. We all want to perform, but actually defining the roadmap that's going to get you there is way, way harder than just knowing that you have to improve. Um, so that's where good people around you, good coaching, and just being pretty honest with yourself about certain things is kind of the key. And I think I really think that's at the heart of our improvement over the last 4 or 5 years. Is I think we got better at answering those questions.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing is being accountable for the underlying factor. Or I love the word like the limiting factor behind getting better. So you got to find that limiting factor and work on that.
Sure.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they keep voting in your 20s, they were voting you for best hair all the time. With that statistic.
Hair's gone, man.
Now we're losing our hair.
It's the population in decline.
Yeah.
So
They
it's
always kept up talking about Will Coleman's hair.
no, it's those days are gone, Eric. Now it's just I'm just another dad out there, thinning hair, and you know, just glad I've locked my wife down already. It'd be tough days. So yeah, no, the hair award. She's just in the past.
What's a message that you'd like to pass on to other aspiring riders that would like to follow in your footsteps?
Hmm. Well, I think really the key to I think anybody being good at this is really just being around really really great horse people, and it doesn't always mean you have to have money to do that. You can go work for anybody, and I think you could start whether it's as a groom, as a exercise rider, as a young horse rider. Um, Really, you just you need to understand that the sport is really about understanding horses, and the better you are at that, the more likelihood you will be successful. And putting yourself around people that understand horses is, I think, the key step to keep earning, gaining that knowledge yourself. So my advice to them is always, you know, regardless of background, regardless of what your means abilities are, you can always find the right people to go work for or be around if you want to. And that would be my advice to anyone: is just find the best horse people you can, and just whatever it takes to sort of be around them, learn from them. You just do that.
Well, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, Will, and maybe become a potential working student or get to follow you on your page, how could they get a hold of you and follow you?
Well, you can. I think I'm not that involved in our website or anything, but I know we have one, and I'm pretty sure there's ways on there to contact us.
It's willcolemanequestrian.com, by the way.
Right. And I think my wife is usually the one who responds to those things, because I'm not the most computer oriented person, but she and I are you know we're always looking for young people or whoever with the right sort of basically just that kind of innate love for horses. And so I think certainly you're welcome to reach out to us. And we have sort of a full house at the moment, but that is ever changing. And we'd be more than happy to at least be a resource for anyone out there. Katie and I, we enjoy helping people as much as we enjoy helping the horses. So
your internet finally came in clear. We were skipping all through the whole session a lot. And I was wondering if we could give our audience just a little bit more entertainment with maybe some of the horses that you own right now that you're excited about. There's Off the Record, or Timmy, that's the one that won Aachen, right?
correct. Yeah.
And he was your ride at Petroni.
Yeah.
How old is he now?
Timmy is 16, so he's kind of in the latter stages of his career. He's still very, very well, and obviously performing well, but he probably is kind of in the last stages of his competitive career at those levels, anyways.
And Diabolo was his running mate there, going for first, and he looks like a very exciting horse coming up for you as well.
Yeah, we love the horse.
How did you acquire him?
He actually came from Australia, sort of a random kind of find, but we were sort of made aware of the horse by a lady that I know named Sharon Ridgway. She's sort of an international agent for horses. She's from Australia herself, and she sent us some videos of Dab, and I get lots and lots and lots of horse videos, and enough that sometimes you can get a little bit dismissive of some of them, just from the sheer volume that comes in. But Katie actually had watched video of Dad on this email that Sharon sent, and she said, have you watched any of these videos of this horse yet? And I said, no, I haven't. And she said, well, I think you should. I think this horse could be kind of nice. And so she's the one who encouraged me to go look at it. And we rest is history. And I think the
How long
horse
have you
is.
had him before you took him to Kentucky?
We've had him. Let's see. I guess we had him about 15 months.
Okay.
So, um,
How old is he
he
now?
he's 12.
Oh, wow.
So,
And
um, and I think he still has a ways to go before I think he's the finished article. But he's the nice horse. We like him. We feel lucky to have him. Had a great group of people came together to make it happen for me, and you know, we'll see what happens. But I think he has a bright future, regardless of what else happens this year. I think we're still really excited about maybe what he can do in the next couple of years, and we're just trying to make him best he can be.
and do you have any others that are currently coming up to the 5-star level?
I've got that horse off the record, Chin Tonic. They'd be sort of my three most experienced horses.
Hmm.
And then I've got a nice 9-year-old horse that's sort of at the 3-star level with me right now. He'll be a 4-star horse, I would hope, in the next 12 months or so.
What's his name?
But his name is Fahrenheit Addict.
Oh, that's a good name.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny name, but he's a lovely horse. Um, we've had him for about 6 months, maybe 7 months. He kind of came from Belgium. A friend of mine found him. And again, lovely character, lots of blood, and just a super athlete. He is just going to take time, I think, to sort of get in our program and just kind of, I think, develop a little bit more sturdy foundation before we go to the kind of higher levels of the sport. But behind him, it's really mostly young horses. I have Very Green 6-year-old, has done almost no eventing really, but a lovely horse. And then the rest of them are 4 or 5. We actually
Wow.
don't have a very big string at the moment. We're still kind of looking to add a couple horses, but it's a very competitive marketplace, and they're just hard horses to find.
Do you think you'll uh you go into Paris? If you do you think you'll spend a little longer time, maybe going to Burley in the fall as well, or
You
doing some
know,
competing over there?
maybe. The only horse I'd have that could maybe do Burley would be Diabolo, and I don't know if, depending on what happens, Paris, I think, is the beginning of August. Basically, it's like the last couple of days of July, and turning around to do Burley from there would be, I think, be a quick turnaround. Off the record is not really a Burley horse. He would be more like a Poe horse.
Oh,
And then now with Maryland here in the States, I think that being a little later in the year, that may make more sense to maybe aim one or two of those guys for Maryland. So, but we'll have to see. I think that we have a couple different scenarios sort of in our head, depending on how things shake out. And, whatever we end up being able to go do, we'll kind of put all of our energy into that and just try to do the best we can.
oh well, I really appreciate you taking your time and talking to us about your horses and your career. And um, I think I could open it up, Molly, if there's anyone that has a
Yeah,
question
there's a
in the
couple of
board.
questions here. There's a couple
Yeah.
of questions here. The first one was, what is your nutrition for your horses? Do you do supplements? Do you treat them with any therapies, magnetic, chiro, acupuncture? Is there a program in that area that you have in your program as part of your program?
Um, Yes. I mean, nutritionally, we feed Cavalier, but the basis of our diet is like, I think, all horses. It's mostly just really good hay, and our horses get a lot of grass. They're out a lot. All of my event horses are out at night, and really try to keep them out almost as much as they want. So I think them being out moving around and again, just being natural as possible has been or is a big part of what we believe in from a horse management standpoint, horse welfare standpoint. On the supplement side of things, we've the only kind of supplement that features prominently in our kind of feeding regimen is Cosequin. It's like a Cosequin ASU is sort of the gold standard of joint supplement kind of maintenance and kind of joint management. And we've sort of fed Cosequin since I was we've had Cosequin I've known about since I was a young rider, and I think the research that goes into their stuff is really incredible. But other than that, that's not we're not kind of we're not massive supplement people. I think we keep the feeding program pretty basic, and on the therapy side of life, both of my Erin and Jarbo and Haley Burlock, who are my two kind of head girls, are extremely, and then of course my wife as well. But Erin and Haley are extremely well educated, sort of physio kind of therapists. We've utilized a technology called FES for a number of years. It stands for functional electric stimulation, and it was a technology actually developed for spinal cord injuries in humans, and it basically delivers an electrical impulse to the muscles that is identical to what the brain would send those muscles. So instead of like a TENS unit, which like sends a pulse, this is like a wave, and so you basically can help a horse recover from hard work or from maybe if they have muscles that are in mild spasm, you can help them sort of recover those muscles. And if they have parts of their body or parts of their top line that are particularly weak, maybe from a conformational standpoint or even just coming out of a poor program standpoint, you can use the FES to help those horses become more aware of these muscle groups that you are trying to strengthen through your training. And I think it can just be, again, just another layer to you helping that horse, fulfill his potential. So other than that, it's pretty old-fashioned horsemanship. Just lots of turnout, lots of kind of slow work with the horses, and then really we try to do the best flat work we possibly can. I think that's really the foundation of all of it.
Yeah. The next question is, you mentioned a 5 a.m. gym time. Do you use free weights or is it a cardio focused workout?
It's not cardio focused. It's mostly, so I get there, part of my warm up routine is I'll hop on a rowing machine for like 500 meters, and I row 500 meters. And then it's mostly like, it's a lot of like dynamic stretching. So we do use some free weights, but not heavy weight. I'm not trying to, been working out with Ron, he's my trainer. I've been working out with Ron for 2 years, very regularly. And I went into working out with him weighing 175, and I still weigh 175, but I'm just so much stronger and more stable than I was. So it's a lot of calisthenics, a lot of balance kind of weight training, tons of core stuff. Ron has a program laid out for me every morning. It's never the same. It's always a little bit slight variations. And we just target, just trying to make me holistically the strongest rider I can be. But I feel great since I've been doing it. It's really been, I think, a big help to me, especially as you get older. You can't rely on just natural balance and athleticism as much as you age. So, this was something that I thought could help me as I go into the later stages of my riding career. And I do think it's made a big difference.
There's another question here, and this is kind of fun. Do your horses have any funny quirks or unique personalities, traits?
Yes. I would say most of them do, honestly. I don't know if I could kind of tell you here over this Zoom call, but I've won this Fahrenheit addict horse, just hates clothes. He rips his clothes off almost every night, but in a very polite and delicate way. He doesn't tear his blankets apart, but he prefers to be naked. Um, Dante, who's an old 5-star horse of mine, he will he's quite orally fixated, and so the girls have tons of little hand gestures that they can do, and he will turn his lip up in a variety of different ways in response. But they're all pretty smart and kind of engaging, and I think our program sort of encourages that. And they all have a personality, no question. And I think that's I think something we kind of like in a horse too. Maybe it's an attribute that we look for.
Yeah. So the last question we have is, which phase is your favorite, and how do you manage your nerves?
Ooh, well, I think I like all the phases, if I'm being honest. If I was ranking them, I'd probably be cross country at the top, maybe show jumping just below it, and then dressage just below that. But the nerves are a good thing, right? That means that it's something that matters to you, and something that you are, you know, you're excited about testing yourself in this arena. And I think the nerves are usually I try to tell myself that I need to be grateful for being a little bit nervous, or because that usually means you're doing what you should be doing. And I honestly I invite the nerves now, because I usually think that it doesn't have to be something that detracts from your performance. It just gives you some performance it's more meaningful to you. So I think the biggest thing with anything that matters to you is having a plan and just sticking to a process. And that's something that I think we are, that's our number one priority. I think going in is we want to have a very clear definition of what success looks like for us at every event. And that doesn't always mean it has to be a blue ribbon, but we try to define that vision of success, and then the fun of it is trying to see if you can bring it to fruition. So enjoying that part of it, and not being so obsessed with whether that's first, second, or third is, I think, what makes it more enjoyable, and usually makes you a better horse person in the process.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you.
we would like to thank you for your time and for your insights. And Eric, you want to wrap it up?
But I really appreciate it, Will, and thank you again for spending
Sure.
the time to join us here. And everyone here, thank you for joining us. And if you want to see a recording of this, you just go to idcta.org, and they should have a recording of this interview up there in momentarily. So
It's
thank
going to
you
be
very
about
much.
24 hours, okay, before
Rose.
it gets up there. And the second thing is you have to be a member to see it. You don't, well, I'll give you access.
Thanks, Molly.
Well,
Anyway,
thank you very much. We look forward to
Yeah,
seeing
no
you.
problem,
Yeah.
guys. Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on. We'll see you guys soon.
Thank you. All right. Good night,
bye.
y'all.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.